Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good day. Hello. I'm not sure when you're listening to this, but you are listening to the Portsmouth Proud podcast. I'm your host, E. Washington, the Public Information Officer for the Portsmouth Police Department. We serve a community that's not too far from the ocean, not too far from the bay, right on the river. And we are producing this police podcast for you, so you know what's happening in your city. You know the plan, and you know how you can be a part of it.
This is episode 6 of the Portsmouth Proud podcast, and we have a great guest today. We have Miss Davina Tramuel. She is a forensics technician with the Portsmouth Police Department. Welcome, Ms. Tramuel.
Oh, thanks for having me.
So, thank you for joining us. So, I always start these conversations with just getting a little bit of background information. Want you to introduce yourself to the people. So, are you a Hampton Roads native?
I am not. No.
Okay, so where are you from?
I'm actually from Roanoke, Virginia.
Okay, so you're from Virginia,
Mhm.
from Roanoke. Roanoke is that Southwest?
Mhm.
Okay, so Southwest Virginia. So what brought you to Portsmouth?
Okay, long story short, I went to school at ODU.
Okay.
Graduated from Bachelor's of Science
Okay.
with a degree in biology. Went back home to work in healthcare, stayed there for a while, and then moved here to work for LabCorp. And then eventually, when I was in school working on my master's, ended up getting hired here for forensics.
Okay. So are you still in a master's program?
No, thank goodness, I finished.
So you finished your master's program, and what was that? What was your master's in?
It was in forensic science, and I double concentrated in biology and crime scene investigation.
Okay, so when you started your bachelor's program in biology, what was the goal at that time when you went to school?
Oh, okay, so I wanted to actually be a pathologist assistant.
Okay.
And then I realized, hey, I need a break from school because it's a lot.
Okay.
Decided that wasn't the career path I wanted to go to after realizing the requirements, because it was basically, hey, you need to focus on this and this alone and not work.
Okay.
I gotta work.
Okay.
So that's how I ended up kind of just doing research, trying to figure out what career field I could maneuver in that would still be interesting. And one of my coworkers actually recommended doing crime scene investigation. And that's how I ended up diverting my path there.
So pathology is like studying diseases, right? Is that correct?
So basically you would work under a pathologist. It was diseases, kind of working with different images or tissue cells. It varies depending on what you wanted to do. So
Okay. What did you want to do? What was...
I honestly, I don't know. I just wanted to be in a field where I would be hands-on in science, working with tissues, working with cells, doing all the sciencey things, if that makes sense.
Okay. Actually, it's all starting to make more sense now. Because I'm thinking of something in particular, like, oh, she's always wanted to work with tissues. Okay. So,
yeah.
where I'm naturally creeped out or hooked out. You're relishing in this. Okay. Okay, I understand. Okay. So you came back to the Hampton Roads area after your undergrad because you were pursuing a career in the sciences and being able in forensic science, actually. And so when did you get hired? How long have you been working with the Portsmouth Police Department?
I've been here since November of 2021.
Oh, okay. So you've been here November 2021. And what role did you start in? Were you a forensics technician when you started?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So can you tell us, like, you have your master's in forensic science, but when you came on, is there, like, any specialized training you have to get once you join up or sign up with the police department?
Not necessarily, because I already had the bachelor's degree. However, there's trainings you can do with the Department of Forensic Science.
Okay.
Different local police departments all have like trainings that you can sign up for. So depending on what's offered, if it relates to what I'm doing, I'll go ahead and sign up for it, especially if it's something I'm not strong in, if that makes sense.
Okay.
So like, for example, I went to excavation school. It's not often that, we'll go and
Right.
dig up a body. So
okay.
in the event it ever happens,
you know how to do it.
I now know what to do.
Okay. Okay. So you have you had to utilize that skill set yet?
No.
No. Okay. okay. Well,
only in practice.
In practice.
Yes.
Okay. So there's classes that different departments offer, or when you said going to the forensic science department, did you mean at ODU or did you?
Well, the Eastern Lab.
Oh, okay. Okay. So what are those what are some other examples of courses that they might offer?
So basic crime scene photography. I've taken a advanced crime scene and basic crime scene course with Suffolk. And then, of course, with the equipment that we have in our office, I took training with Faro and NIBIN, as well as Evidence IQ, which is our triage machine.
Okay, I've heard of NIBIN. I'm not familiar with Faro, but I would like if you could tell us a little bit more about those machines, starting with Faro.
Okay, so Faro is basically just a 3D imaging machine that we use to take a live scan of the crime scene while we're there in real time. So it's kind of, if you ever looked at an apartment walkthrough online,
yes,
it's basically what that is, except for a crime scene.
Oh, okay. So it like makes a 3D model, like it allows you to just see it, or allows you to like move through the apartment.
You can move through the scene. You can see it. I can take the photos that I've taken and place it in there. So you can take measurements within the 3D scanner. And you can also, if you really want to get fancy, basically reconstruct the crime scene and put everything into that software once everything's merged together and placed and ready to go.
Now, did you use this equipment in college or in your master's program?
No.
So, but we have this in Portsmouth. This is part of our department. So was that exciting to be able to use that, or how was the first time that you saw?
I've heard about it. We've talked about it in school, but actually seeing it and putting it to use is definitely a lifesaver, because we were taught how to measure a scene, like using
measuring tape
and how to record, and that can be very, very time consuming.
I'm sure. Yes.
So having the scanner definitely cuts back on time, and then actually knowing what to do as far as piecing everything together with it, it's kind of nice.
So you have the training to do it the old school way with measuring tape, but the department has also provided modern technology, up-to-date technology to measure out the crime scenes, but also create that 3D model. Do you end up ever having to do you all use that in court?
Not yet.
Okay.
So I haven't used it in court yet. However, I've used it to show other departments, like say if I had a case where NCIS was involved.
Mm-hmm.
If the scans are created, I would send it to them. If they needed a better understanding of how the scene was set up, I could basically explain to them, hey, this is what it looked like when I got there. These are the photos that I'd taken, and just kind of walk them step by step of what I saw.
Okay. So it really has allowed you to quickly or thoroughly present to other investigative agencies what your findings were. That's cool. Okay, so that's Faro. And then you said NIBIN. Can you tell us what is NIBIN?
So it's basically a system that we use to enter casings, either collected from the scene or test fired casings, and we're putting them into a database, and the database will compare it to other casings that have been placed within the United States, or honestly within the world, depending on how you want your, what's the word I'm looking for? How you have it set up to read it or get it analyzed. If you just want it done through the eastern side of the U.S., it'll focus on all the eastern states, compare it. If there's a lead, it'll get sent back to us information about the case it got compared to and who to contact.
So NIBIN, you're inserting fingerprints into a database?
No, it's cartridge casings that were either found on the scene or test fired cartridge casings from a firearm.
Okay. So the firearm, the casings are going in there, and they are being analyzed against other casings that have been found around the country or locally. Or so that is, who has to find the casings? You get the casings?
So yeah, I'll get case, like if I get called out to, let's say, a homicide, and we find 10 cartridge casings on the scene.
Okay.
I will basically take them to the office, triage them using our triage machine, focus on like looking for specific markings within that cartridge casing to compare to see if they came from the same firearm. And then based on that triage report, I would take a certain amount of casings, if they were similar or different, enter it into the NIBIN machine, basically focusing on those markings to have it correlate to whatever is in the database already.
Right. Okay. Mm-hmm. So I asked that question. I know I got sidetracked a little bit because I one time, like on a ride along, wanted to be useful. So there was a shooting had happened. So I was looking on the ground for casings. That took a long time. It takes a long time to do that. So that's, sorry if I'm getting a little sidetracked with the casings, but it's important that you find this because then it can connect a case to something that happened in Florida or something that happened in California. Mm-hmm. Because everything isn't always solely local. Mm-hmm. Okay. Then you mentioned something else. You said it was the FARO, was NIBIN, and then what was the other?
Oh, Evidence IQ.
Okay, what is that?
So that's basically the triage machine that we use for all the casings, and it will make a summary of like what firearm or what casings are potentially from the same firearm. And then we use that information to determine which casing, because not all the casings from a scene get entered into NIBIN. It will be based off of that triage report, which one would, if, say there's 10 casings from a scene, 5 might be from one firearm, 5 might be from another. But within those two groups, one might be the best fit for one firearm to get placed into NIBIN, and one would be the best fit from the other to be placed into NIBIN.
So the Evidence IQ it's looking at, I'm assuming because I have no idea, but maybe like, is there enough left of the casing to be able to be tracked in NIBIN?
Yeah, so it's basically looking at the head stamp, any markings that's on the head stamp of a cartridge casing. If there's a ejector mark, depending on the shape of the breech face.
Oh, breech face. Oh.
So it could be elliptical, it could be circular, and then you have characteristics of whether it's parallel markings, if there's aperture marks. So it's a lot of different things within the head stamp from where the firing pin hit the head stamp once you fire a firearm, that will kind of pinpoint what possible firearm it came from.
So this is like super technical.
Yeah.
But it's interesting because you watch a lot of law enforcement TV shows, and they don't necessarily go into all the detail about the different machines and how they work. So yeah. So you're using those machines. Now, can you tell us, when do you get called out to a crime scene? Can you walk us through that process?
So, of course, I would start by getting the call. When I arrive on a crime scene, my first step is usually to communicate to whoever is the primary detective on the case.
Okay.
Or their sergeant, just to get an idea of like what I'm about to walk into. So I'll get briefed on what basically occurred or what they know so far occurred. We'll walk through the scene, look for evidence to see basically what we need to collect. I'll photograph the scene. If it's something serious like a homicide, I would use the Pharaoh to have that live scan image of what occurred or how we found the scene. Make sure, take notes and basically collect.
So how do you know what to take pictures of?
So when I arrive, basically you want to start getting your overall photos of the scene itself when I arrived. And then I would place my markers down to, based on what I was told, what would be of evidentiary value. And then from there, I would go back and retake a overall photo of the scene with those markers, take mid-range photos of where those markers were placed, so that way if the photos are used in court, they can have an idea of where it was located.
Okay.
And then close-ups with and without scale.
Okay. So you said evidentiary value.
Mm-hmm.
What gives something evidentiary value? Like if it's a house, say a murder or homicide occurs in a house,
mm-hmm.
is the whole house the scene? Is just downstairs the scene? And then what makes the whole house the scene?
It could depend on the scenario. So like say there was a confrontation between two people and they ended up getting into an argument which led into someone getting stabbed.
Okay.
Say that person stabbed them in the kitchen, but they ran up to the bedroom.
Mm-hmm.
So following the trail of red substance,
okay,
that all of that would be that pathway or that trail leading into wherever they basically stopped moving around would be the crime scene. Yeah.
Okay. And then it would be like you would track the red substance would have evidentiary value.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Okay. That's just, you don't know. You watch stuff, you hear things. Like I'm around you all. I still don't know all the things. So it's nice to have a better understanding of what goes into that. Okay. So that's how you interact with detectives on the scene. So now you've taken the pictures, and I assume you're collecting evidence as well. Does that happen after the picture taking?
So evidence collection is usually the very last step.
Okay.
Photos, of course, doing the Pharaoh to measure the scene. If the victim is still on the scene, or if they're deceased, we'll have to wait until the ME comes out, medical examiner comes out. They'll do what they need to do, take photos of the body and look for wounds and all that stuff. And then once the body gets removed, that's when I would collect evidence.
Okay, so are you the person, like say if someone was attacked, are you the one going under fingernails getting skin follicles, or who is that?
That will be the medical examiner's office.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So you don't necessarily interact with the victim's body on the scene.
The only thing that I would do is basically take photos of any wounds, tattoos. If they got shot, I would take GSR, which basically you're just collecting particles from their hands. And then I would bag their hands and tag their body. So that way when it goes to the medical examiner, they know who it is.
What do you mean by bag their hands?
So to preserve any evidence that might be like in their fingernails or on their hands, we'll basically just take like handbags or paper bags and just put it around their hands.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I got a little nervous.
Oh.
Bag their hands. I was a little nervous.
No, I'm not. No, I'm not.
I didn't know what was happening. Okay. Okay, so that collection of evidence is the last thing. So then what is that process? After you collect the evidence, you said you like with preserving the body by bagging the hands, taking particles that you might have collected if they had like gun powder residue or something on their hands. Now you're back in the lab. What are you bringing back to the lab? Are you bringing something back to the lab?
Most likely, yes.
Okay.
So it could be anything. It could be victims' clothing. It could be weapons used. If it's firearm related stuff, it could be casings, IDs, whatever was on the like wallets.
So you collect clothing. Say you get clothing back to the lab. What are you doing with that clothing?
Photographing. So once again, I'll use a shooting as an example. Say the victim got shot multiple times. I would take their clothing, I would photograph it, but I would also photograph like where on the clothing, like say they got shot in the stomach. If there's a hole on their shirt, I would photograph close up so that you could see, hey, this is where it entered or exited from their body, depending on where it is on the article of clothing.
So you would have taken this picture of the clothing on the person when you were on scene, and then you would bring the clothing after they've gone to the medical examiner, clothing is removed. Now you're bringing the clothing to the lab and you're taking additional pictures. And is there any other, anything else that you would do to that clothing?
Depending on what the detective is looking for, like if you're looking for trace evidence, say there's hair or different type of fiber, I would collect that. If there's possible gunshot residue on the clothing, depending on the material, if they want it sent off to the lab, I could send it off to the lab for testing. I've taken jewelry basically for safekeeping. Any type of evidence that could potentially be the suspects, like say if, hey, they had a cup on the scene that could possibly be theirs, I would swab it for DNA, fingerprint it. Yeah, so I mean, it's a lot.
It is a lot, and it's essential that you are doing all those steps because it can make or break a case. If all the evidence isn't collected or something is left out. So it's your job, and the responsibility of your job is really important. So then because you are going to all sorts of scenes, of all sorts of crime scenes, how are you affected? Because we talk about to officers about wellness and mental health and the different things that they have for officers that are available to officers to help them deal with that. But there's more than just officers or detectives that are going to a crime scene interacting with dead bodies. You go to, scenes with homicides. How are you affected? And what do you do to mitigate some of the
I try not
potential trauma?
I don't think it affected me yet. I've had moments where I'm like, okay, like, whew, it's kind of tough, but I'm kind of a person that'll think of it, okay, not only, yes, I'm going to treat it like it's my job. I know I have to do this. I'm not going to overthink and overanalyze, but at the same time, I'm going to do whatever I can to help solve the case.
Okay.
It can be overwhelming sometimes. Like I get a little cranky sometimes just because I'm like, okay, it's a lot going on. It's a lot of violence out here. I'm gonna need people, chill out sometimes. But yeah, for the most part, I just try not to let it get to me. Like I'm not going to say I don't lose sleep, but at the same time, I'm not going to be constantly thinking about it.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that's an intentional thing, not to constantly think about it. Like it's your work, and you want to help the case, and then we'll move on to the next one.
Yeah.
I get that. Do you have like a case that is not active that has affected you? Or that if you don't think about it all the time, a case that might pop up occasionally? Or one that you were like,
it is okay
to have work.
Okay, so there's one in particular. It's sort of kind of active, so I won't go into too much detail. But basically, it was kind of like my aha moment, I should say. So, like, I was joking around the office about a particular piece of evidence, saying, "Oh, it would be funny if such and such happened."
Right.
Then, as I'm going through it, such and such actually happened.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, this is exciting. And then it kind of got serious because the more we kept going back to where we found that piece of evidence, the more stuff was being found. And I'm just like, oh my goodness, this is overwhelming. It's so much stuff. I'm getting stressed out. But at the same time, this is cool because this is what I wanted to actually see at a scene sometimes.
Right. Okay.
So it was a lot. It was a lot. And I'm not going to say it was fun, but it was interesting.
Right.
But also stressful.
I get it.
And also kind of sad. Because, I mean, it was a lot. That's all I'm going to say. It was a lot.
This reminds me of a text message that I sent my friend. I sent her like 3 different things to describe the situation. But I definitely get that, because this is what you want to do. This is your career. And it's your best work is going to most likely happen at someone else's worst event that has taken place. And so there's going to be that sad component, because the field in which we work in, it can be sad what's going on, what's happened. And then it can be stressful because there's a lot on the line. Like justice is on the line. But then it's also, again, it's the work that you've trained for. Like you've got a bachelor's, you've got a master's, you've gone through this career field. You've put in 4 years of work in this particular field. So it's also going to be satisfying. And I think that's like, it's the most satisfying thing, especially when like, I know what you're talking about, but to think that something has happened and you use like your skill set to come to a conclusion, and then like, oh yeah, I got it. My conclusion was correct. It was correct. This is exactly what they did. That has to be also satisfying, because it's also showing showing professional growth. Like, I'm doing this.
Like, okay, I got this a little bit,
Yes.
I got a little stressed out because, a little panic,
right.
But now that I know.
Right. That's exciting. That's exciting. So, you said with pathology, it can be tissues, it can be diseases, it's a variety of things. In my mind, it's like, because is a pathologist like a medical doctor? Okay, so they're solving things.
Yeah, they're trying to figure out the cause.
Yeah.
Like what caused this? Yeah.
So you are kind of in the career field of solving things. Where do you go in this field? Like, what's the next step for Ms. Tramuel? Like, what do you do what are the levels in forensic?
I mean, you can branch off to anything depending on what you like. Like some people, if you want to stay in crime scene investigation, cool. If you want to go the lab route and work in forensic biology, or if you want to do toxicology and work with drugs and all that stuff, or if you like firearms, you can become a firearms examiner, fingerprint examiner. You can work with digital stuff, like if you like going through cell phones and video footage and all that stuff, there's that route.
So are you doing that? Do you have to like track phones and?
So I don't do the cell phone rips.
Okay.
In particular, would I like to do it? Yes.
Oh, okay.
Just to say, hey,
I did it.
I also know how to do this too.
Okay.
But for the most part, I'm open to learning new things within the field. Would I settle for one particular area? That's to be determined.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
When you say that, are you, do you see yourself staying within crime scene investigation? Just maybe.
Well, technically, right now I've moved to fingerprint examiner, so that's interesting within itself because it's like solving a puzzle.
Okay.
And I like puzzles.
Okay. Okay.
So I can see myself doing that, but at the same time, I also like doing crime scene. I'm just kind of all over the place.
Okay. But I said okay, but I didn't mean it like.
Okay.
I just mean like listening to you. You don't seem all over the place. It seems like it all fell together,
Mm-hmm.
and I can see like I always am trying to like connect the dots or find the I can't think of the phrase, but like the connecting line or yarn or thread
Mm-hmm.
between things, and I definitely see it because I see it as like all puzzle solving, and I can definitely just from our conversation see where you started and then see how it all fits together. So it's interesting. You made it sound interesting what you do, because I'm always like I can't deal with the smell. If I walk up and I see something like.
See, that's the thing. Like,
Well, went to humanity. So
there are some scenes where I'm like, okay, the smell is, whew, I don't know if I can handle it. But I can get over that. I can get over the grotesque of things.
Good. Yeah.
But man, let me see a bug. I will go into full panic mode, like, please hurry up and get me out of here. I can't. Man, listen. If anyone ever wants to be a crime scene investigator, if you have a fear of bugs, please know that you will see bugs all the time.
This is new. I didn't expect it. Okay, why are we seeing bugs all the time?
Yeah.
Is it because the households or the places that
it could be the place, the condition of the household. It could be how far the
person is?
Yeah, how far the dead person progressed in their decomposition. Okay. So you can see a lot.
That's why. That's why you do that. It takes a special guy. Like, that's why when I was like, oh, you've always wanted to work with the tissue. It makes sense. Okay. So, what would you say to a young person? Actually, I know this young lady, and she's interested in forensics. What advice would you give to a young person who's interested in this career field?
You definitely, I would say definitely take the time to either shadow someone or take a internship.
Okay.
So you can get the full grasp of it. Because it can be overwhelming. It can be time consuming. Mm-hmm. It can take up a lot of your time. So like if you're the type of person that, hey, I like to get off work on time, might not be for you because sometimes it'll be towards the end of your shift and then you got to get called somewhere. So expect the unexpected. If you can deal with that, you should be fine.
Okay. Well, ma'am, Ms. Tramuel, it has been a pleasure discussing forensics. Just want to say again, thank you so much for joining us on the podcast today. And for our listeners, remember, this is your city, this is our city, so let's do something great.
Are you considering a career in law enforcement? Sign on today as a Portsmouth police officer and receive up to $1,500 if you're already Virginia certified. We offer a $1,000 allowance for a bachelor's degree and a $500 allowance for an associate's degree on top of your base pay. Officers can also earn additional income on time spent in court and at community events. Visit our website at portsmouthpd.us for more information on how to apply.